Hi guys, I put my sourdough starter by the fireplace. It just wasn't rising very well. So after 4 hours, the first rise finished. Usually it takes 2 hours. I'm not sure exactly if my starter was a little bit finicky today, but now it's ready. So the first step I do is I punch it down. Okay, there's a little crust on the outside of that because it's been by the fireplace so long. It's nice and hot. So I usually get 3 loaves out of this batch, and it's a little wetter than usual. So I'm gonna dump it out on some flour. And it's actually really hot from being by the fire. Usually in the sun it doesn't get that hot. Okay, so it's kind of sticky, so I'm gonna go ahead and flour a little bit. So I'm gonna basically portion this into 3 parts, 3 equal parts. I'm gonna show you how I make 3 loaves out of that batch that we talked about earlier. It's a little sticky. Okay, so I take it and divide it into 3 equal parts. Okay, and I'm gonna set 2 over here for the cinnamon raisin bread. And now I'm gonna take this one part and I'm gonna fold it in on itself. Fold it in on itself until it makes a nice little loaf like this. Then I'm gonna stick it in a well-oiled loaf pan. I'll show you on this one. And tuck it under, tuck it under, tuck it under till it looks like this. Okay, and then I'm gonna stick it in a well-oiled loaf pan. Now for the plain loaf, I use my Pampered Chef stoneware. And you're not supposed to spray any kind of spray in this, so I put a little bit of oil and then I spread it around like this. And I'm using this for my plain bread. And I'm gonna stick that little loaf right in there, and then we wait for a second rise. So I'm gonna put it back over by the fire. I'm gonna cover it like this with my little wrap and put it over by the fire. But what I wanna show you now is how I do the cinnamon raisin bread. So I made my plain one, and now I'm gonna get my counter all dirty with the cinnamon raisin bread. So what I did earlier today was I put some dried raisins, some of them are crispy, crunchy, and I put boiling water on them, and they've been sitting for the whole time it's been rising. So it's kind of wet. I'm gonna go use my little sieve and drain those raisins. Well drained. Whoops, I lost a few of the raisins. Okay, so now they're well drained. I took a cup of sugar and a tablespoon of cinnamon, and I'm gonna mix that real careful. This is for 2 loaves of bread. You can do less sugar. If I have extra, I'll save it for cinnamon toast or other recipes I need to use it for. Okay, so I've got my cinnamon sugar mixture ready. I've got my plumped raisins ready. They've been drained. I've got 2 baking pans that I did spray. These kind can be sprayed with a spray canola oil. And now I've got my little loaves here. So I'm gonna make them into rectangles so that when I roll them up, they will fit in this loaf pan. So you want it to be the width of your loaf pan. Okay, let me show you. So it's the same width as my loaf pan. Does that make sense? Okay. Now I take my cinnamon sugar mixture, and I don't even know if I'm gonna need a full cup of sugar. So I mean, a half a cup is what I was thinking per loaf, but I was just kind of trying to get an estimate. That's not even a half a cup of sugar. That's only like maybe 1/3 of a cup of sugar. There's a bunch of cinnamon in there. Okay, it's all gonna melt and it gushes out, so that's why I can't use my stoneware for this, because it leaks out and it's really hard to clean that. And stoneware, you're not supposed to use any soap. You can only use water. Okay, so I'm taking a handful of the drained raisins and I'm just doing a thin layer on top of my loaf. One thin layer. And then I'm going to start rolling. I'll do it from this side so you can see. Start rolling it, tightly rolled. It's kind of like you would do cinnamon rolls. Okay, tightly rolled. And then when the end gets here, I pinch it, pinch it, pinch it, pinch it to seal the loaf in. And then I've learned the hard way, I'm going to tell you my trick, is to put the seam side up. When you put the seam side down, if anything leaks out, it is harder to get this pan out. It's hard to get the bread out of the pan perfectly out. So remember to grease your bottom of the pan and then put the smooth side down. And the seam side is up. That way, if there's any juices that burst out, you've got a little protection. Sometimes it sticks, but it just rips a little pinch and it's okay. So this one, we're gonna roll it real quick. Okay, so all of these have to do a second rise. And yes, I am gonna put them back by the fire. Keep a close eye on it. And it rises up more like almost to the top of the bread loaf pan. Then you know it's ready. Yeah, see, that was a cup of brown sugar and I didn't even use, maybe I used about 1/4 cup per loaf or 1/3 of a cup sugar per loaf. That's a lot of bread for that amount of sugar. Okay, there's a little bit of water. I'm squeezing these and make sure I don't get a ton of liquid. And putting one handful thin layer of raisins. This is the same as I just did. I'm just showing you again. Squeeze a little bit more. Okay, then I'm going to roll this up tightly from the edge. You'll see me come by in a second. Tightly roll it. My kids love this for toasted for breakfast. It's really good on their busy school mornings when we're all trying to get ourselves to a specific time. We can toast it. They like it if I pre-slice it so it's already sliced and ready in a bag. They can just come down, throw it in the toaster. We put it in a little butter on it. It's good to go. So the seam is right here. I pinched it. I'm going to put the seam side up to help lift and stick it in there. Okay. And so then those are going to rise again in a nice warm place. Okay. After that, we'll be baking them at 350 for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then you have to let them cool and get them out of their pans. And you should wait until the bread is cooled before you start to slice it. I'm gonna have the extra raisins that are all sweet. Have a good day.